Now, this episode is dedicated to the homophobic twink man we know as KETTE Kerchow, originally debuting in the comic series on February 22nd of 2024. Generally speaking, he is meant to be a villain, an antagonist of the Ungrounded Souls arc of Morgantown. When we are first introduced to this character, he is quiet and distant, but in the second introduction, he is shown to be violent and remorseless, as he's seen basically shooting King as a kid. He originates from 1943, Russia, from World War II of the Morgantown canon timeline. So it isn't actually, similar to our timeline in the real world. There were specific different situations for that war. KETTE was drafted as a 19-year-old after he finished college due to a draft system. He originally didn't want to go, but then plans changed after he heard about American cheese, and he decided that he wanted to migrate to America under a false name to see if he could eat some American cheese, as rumored from cheeseburgers. Even as a soldier, he wasn't actually that bad, but not that good either, as he was the 22nd most strongest soldier of his 200 soldier unit. He had done fairly decent as a soldier in Russia. Since he was born in 1929, obviously his different social views have a play in the arc that he's shown in. I guess his homophobic views are played off as comedy, but in his social life, there was a big part of that. But over time, obviously, as he's exposed to Hollywood during the seafood arc, when he dates Operetta, he sees, how different the world is socially outside of the island that he had been sheltered in for over 80 years. So, at the end of the seafood arc, he's not homophobic, he's not exactly bisexual, but he's definitely accepting of different views. And I like to think that's because of how, socially open Operetta is, despite the fact that she is typically an angel that feeds off the negative and toxic environment of Hollywood. I feel like just because she's in a lot of social circles, it would give it opportunities for KETTE to view things differently than the way he has before. Morgantown Arc 13 and 14 were actually more story-driven than the arcs beforehand, because I actually wanted to start working on specific arcs based off storylines and not just winging it. Honestly speaking, it is difficult to write and draw out a story-driven comic sequence, because I usually didn't, make story-driven comics beforehand. I just honestly started writing whatever came across my mind when it came to the Morgantown comics. And because of that, I'm very, shy about showing that comic. And I honestly want to make this series of, character analysis to try to be more open about these characters. Well, I know that specifically they are a lot different socially. I think a little bit unacceptable, especially with how KETTE is homophobic. Although character-wise, he's supposed to be like that because he is, a Russian straight guy from the 1940s. Of course he's gonna be like that. But then over time, he's like, oh, people are actually kind of chill. And also, he's kind of a parody character. I draw most of my, LGBT art with him. I don't know, it's kind of funny. I've seen a lot of friends call him a twink, and honestly, yeah, he is. He's 6'4". He's very much a twink. As a character, though, he's the only, human villain of Morgantown because he's basically a survival-based villain. He doesn't have a drive for greed. He doesn't have a drive for anything like I don't know, like value. So that's why him as a character, it kind of feels reasonable, because the entire time of him as a villain, it's the main characters honestly like invading his space or putting him through torture and shit, and he obviously like tries to fight back, but obviously it doesn't go well as he plans it to be because he's socially like fucked up. Even though he is canonically charismatic and very social when it comes to people he's comfortable around, he's not exactly like that on the island arc, and he's more like shut in because of that. Typically speaking, KETTE was inspired off of family experiences, I guess. I heard about my great-grandpa's, like, brother who died in war, and I just kind of, like, got inspired by that, and I was like, oh, low-key, that kind of sounds like a dope story to base, like, a villain off of, because imagine, this could be legit real. Like, a soldier kind of, like, illegally migrating to an island or some shit, going somewhere, pretending to be dead just to escape. Because you gotta remember, like, specifically, the war drafts, like, sometimes they didn't even choose to go. Sometimes they were just kind of picked, like, against their will, and they just had to go, or else, like, societally, they would be kind of fucked up, because nobody would like them. And, that'd be kind of like the end of your life socially. Obviously, societal expectations-wise, men were also highly expected to go to war, even if they didn't want to, like, even if they didn't get drafted to. So, gender roles is definitely a thing, in KETTE. As he's also, like, a mildly sexist. I do find that to be, like, a toxic trait of his that does make sense, because he is from the 1940s. He specifically thinks that all men should go to war and, like, have to fight for themselves and shit, and that's why he was, like, living off snow and whatever he could find for, like, 2 weeks, because he didn't want to ask for help from, like, British people, I guess. I don't know. He specifically doesn't get help. He tries to fix and help himself, and he ends up fucking, like, low-key committing a crime to survive, and that's why he becomes a villain, because he has, like, a lack of reliance on people socially. Like, he's too, like, afraid to speak out, and I think that's what makes him unique, because it's the survival aspect that pushes him to being a villain. It's not that he wanted money, it's not that he wanted much, I guess, like, American cheese, but he could have just went to McDonald's or some shit. It's that he wanted to survive without seeming like he needed somebody's help. Also, sorry, this video got kinda long, so I'm gonna cut it short here. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more, like, autism spasms, follow, subscribe, whatever.